presenting your efforts to judges like myself. And what you have to do in a short time is take all the work and the analysis that you've done and get all those insights and everything that you've discovered out of your brain into my brain as quickly and efficiently as possible. And possibly some of you are going to do that by visualizing your data and showing me some wonderful, compelling visualizations. So that's what I want to talk about, and how do we do that? What are the best visualizations? And Rishi is going to follow on in an hour's time and talk about storytelling. Great. Okay. So what I want to do, first of all, is show you what I think is the best visualization in the world. And you probably won't agree with me, but this is one that I think is absolutely wonderful. And believe it or not, it comes from the Office of National Statistics. It's not the place you might think of as producing lovely visuals. And it might mean more to you if you have an English name, because it's all about the popularity of names of babies, of names born for babies in England and Wales over the last 100 years. So if you're unfortunate enough to be called Martin, you can see that your parents have a lot to answer for, because it was popular sometime in the late 1960s, and ever since then it's just dropped off a cliff. So what we've got here, let me show you, it might be a bit difficult to read. We have got 100 years on the x-axis from 1905 to I think 2017, where they've got latest data. So we've got 100 years on the x-axis. On the y-axis we've got a ranking from 1 to 100, so it's not absolute numbers, it's a ranking. So that we can see that Martin was never really very popular. He only reached number 19 in 1970, but after that, never mind. But I should not crow, because Mark is even worse. At least, its decline is even worse and even faster. So this is interesting. It's interesting in a practical sense. If you're choosing to name your child, you might have to have a look at what's popular. It's interesting from a kind of sociological sense, how quickly things come in and out of fashion. And Claire, are you with an eye or without an eye? Without an eye. So one of the issues with this is we can't, if we're planning a family of boys and girls, we can't put them on the same. But Claire, without an eye, if we have a look at you, dear me indeed, that is terrible. But maybe you like having a unique name, and it's good that not everybody else is called Claire. So does anybody want to shout out a name? And Rishi, there's no point shouting out yours. Gareth. Okay. I'm taking that you want Gareth to be a boy. In these days, we're never quite sure. Gareth. So here we are, Gareth. Oops. It's a wobbly table at the moment, so I'm glad that I don't have to do too much. Gareth, Gary, and Gary. So there you are, Gareth. Again. What we do is we see a few ones. Let's have a look at George. And George is one that has gone out of fashion, come back. So it's quite interesting to see, how fashionable and how quickly names come in and out of fashion. I think it's a lovely thing, especially if you're kind of your name's on. You mention a name. This Archie. Maybe it's not. Archie. So Archie, they're not the first, are they? We can expect it to go up. And what we see, there's another beautiful visualization down here, which is a slope chart. And again, it's all on rankings. And on the left-hand side, we've got 2007. On the right-hand side, we've got the latest data, 2017. And can we see that any Jacks here? Well, you'll probably be about 12 years old if you were. So because Jack was the most popular name with 7,666 babies, but it hasn't done too badly. It's gone down to number 5. But there's some that have done much worse. If we have a look at Thomas, very popular, but it's gone down. Whereas Oliver has always been generally popular. So for me, these two are perfect. They've got just enough detail. They've got a personalization aspect. They also give lots of indications, ask lots of questions about social history and how things have changed, and give a good view. So, I just wanted to show that because that is what I think is a lovely visual. But we're just going to talk about which chart do we choose. And if we go onto the internet and type in, how do people process visual information, we get a lot of rubbish being spurted at us and very unhelpful. So we find out that 80%, according to one claim, we retain 80% of what we see, but only 10% of what we hear. In which case I should just stop and show you some visuals, really. No need for a microphone or anything. We hear that we process information 600,000 times faster than we process text. I don't know where that claim crops up again and again and again. So what we can take out from this is, yeah, visuals are important and perhaps they're very efficient, but it's not really telling us exactly giving us practical advice on which visualization to use. So let's do that. There was a study in the 1980s by Cleveland and McGill, and what they did is they tried to work out which visuals are best for importing information and accurate information. So they did, for example, a test. They would show a pie chart to a group of people, and they would label one of the segments of the pie with the number of that pie, and then they would ask people to estimate the other numbers of the other segments, and depending on how well or badly they did, they worked out a kind of hierarchy of which are the best visuals for importing information and getting that sort of accurate estimation of the numbers. So we're going to do something like that, and we're going to do an experiment. You are all my guinea pigs, and I am going to show you the same data, but visualized in lots of different ways. And you are going to tell me what you like and what you don't like, what is clear to you, or what takes a lot of cognitive processing and makes you a bit frustrated and angry. And from that, what we're going to try and do is to work out some rules about what works when. Now, the data we've got is quite topical, and I'll just show you the data. It's quite hard to see, but again, this is data from the ONS, and it is all about where people were born and where they work in the UK. I've got data for every year from 2004 all the way through to 2017 inclusive. That's 14 years. And I've got where people are born. Where people are born either in the UK or they were born either in the other EEA, which means anywhere in the EU and Norway and Liechtenstein and Sweden, you tell me, but not in the UK. That's other EEA or other world, which is everybody else. And then which part of the 12 regions of Britain, from London to Scotland, they're working in. So, for example, we can see that there were 105,100 workers in the East Midlands who were born outside the EU in 2004. So let's have a look at some of this data. Now I'm just looking at one particular year. I've filtered this on 2017. And I've got 4 charts. On the top left, we've got this, what's called a donut chart, which is a pie chart with the middle taken out. On the top right, we've got a tree map. On the bottom left, we've got a point map, a geographical map with a data map. And bottom left. On the bottom right, we've got a simple boring table, and I've just put on some kind of data bars to give you an indication, another helpful indication. So I'm going to have a vote here. Who likes the donut chart best? Great. And can I ask you to, it's all the people at the front. It must be something to do with that. Can I ask you why you like it the best? Yep. Okay. Okay, it's round, it's visual, that's important, and you can easily see the Can I ask East Midlands or West Midlands, which have workers, without looking at any of the other charts? And don't let... East Midlands or West Midlands, who had the most workers into it? Okay, yes, they did, by about 500,000, about 20%. And did you look at that chart, or did your eyes stray to... Well done, well done. Anybody like the tree map? Now, it's interesting because the tree map is one of those visuals when somebody kind of presents a visualization. It's nice and colourful, and it's always on those marketing brochures, isn't it? In defense of the tree map, I would say the tree map is a use, but not in this particular case. If we had about, instead of 12, we had 100 categories, and some categories were very, very big, and some categories were very small, it's good to see the distribution. But with 12 similar categories, it doesn't really work. Who likes the map? Okay. Why? Oh, right. Right.
So, actually, it's very easy to see where that is.
Okay. So you didn't know where Scotland was beforehand?
Yeah, I do. I'm quite good at geography.
Yeah.
I know lots of people that don't.
Right. And it just happens to be United Kingdom geography. If it was geography of somewhere else.
Like, I'd have no idea where any of that stuff is.
Yeah. Okay. So a map has its place. Anybody else like the map? Want to say why? Why is that? Okay. 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 Good. Good. And southwest or southeast? Which is bigger, southwest or southeast? Southwest or southeast region? Which is bigger? And we've just got a guess there. That's just a guess. Come on. So you're right. It teaches you something about the geography of the place, but it doesn't necessarily help you work out exactly which is the biggest and smallest. Okay, but some people like that. And what we're seeing is that there's a lot of difference of opinion here. You can't please all the people all the time. Finally, the very boring table. Tables will never work. They're the worst. Everybody knows it. It's the visualization's Bible. Who? Come on, you put your hand up, Gareth.
Digital information that tells you which is larger than which of the others. It gives you proportionally which are the biggest, which are the smallest. That to me is far more useful.
Right. So, anybody else agree with Gareth? You agree? Okay. Okay. For our Australian down here,
Yeah.
do you like it?
No. Yeah, that's probably my second favourite because it's hard to put.
Okay. Okay. So, and does it help that those data bars are on there? And it also obviously helps that everything is in order. We know that we've got a convention that. But if I put it, for example, if I put it in alphabetical order, it might not work quite so much. If I came over here and said, actually, I'm going to sort by region name, that might not be quite so useful. Good. Okay, so I've got 4 more. It gets better. Okay, so back to our boring charts. We saw a table, but here's with data bars, but here's a bar chart. And maybe a very, very boring. I'll go through the 4 of them. And here's a variation of a theme. Instead of horizontal bars, I've got vertical bars. Does that work better for you? And then I've got a line chart, because line charts are very popular. Here's a lovely line chart. And finally, this is our pie chart, which is our donut filled in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a bit easier. I'm going to sort by the number of jobs in 2017. So now we've got an order going from smallest to largest. So we can see where things are just by their position as well as the angle of segment. So I will take anybody who likes the bar chart, the horizontal bars. Okay? Anybody want to comment why? I'm talking about this one. I should actually maybe I call the one with the horizontal bars, and then this one column. So, yeah, okay. But who doesn't like it because it hasn't got impact, or does it have impact? Because when people come and they say, "I want to get away from boring bar charts," but here you are saying you like it. Okay, tell me more.
If you want to compare Scotland to Yorkshire, it's not going to be useful.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And it's not going to be useful. Why?
Because it doesn't represent the exact numbers.
Yes. Of course, what I could do is I could come on and stick on the visualization. I could come down here and hopefully stick the, where's the data labels? Probably here. It's a wobbly table, so there you go. And I could make those data labels bigger. And then it becomes a bit like the table we saw. Instead of having big numbers and small bars, we've got big bars and small numbers. Right, who likes a line chart? So nobody likes line charts?
I like line charts, just not like this.
What's wrong with my line chart?
It's not used in like a series, right?
I've got a series.
But not really work.
Is it a series though? I mean, that's just blocks of data.
Okay, so what?
It doesn't strike me
Yeah.
as a series.
So I would agree that a line chart should be a time series. Usually it's time or date on the x-axis, and that's where line charts work. Okay, so we've had a look at a snapshot in 2017. What we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at this data from 2004 to 2017, and maybe in that particular case my line charts might work. So what I'm doing, showing you a different view of the data. What we've got on this left-hand side, we've got a line chart, and what we've got is 2004 on the left-hand side, 2017. We've got the 14 years on our x-axis. On our y-axis, we've got the number of workers and this is where they were born. So that big red bar is the UK workers. Obviously, most of the people working in the UK were born in the UK. The black bar is the other world, people born outside the EU, and the green bar is EU workers. That's one. So let's have a look at those before. Then I've done it in two other ways. Come over here and let me click on that. This is what's called a stacked bar chart. It's the same information, but instead of having 3 lines, I've got bars and they're stacked on one another. And if you don't like them stacked, I can also do you as well. I can do them clustered. So same information and they're clustered. So who feels the line chart on our left-hand side is the most insightful chart? And why? Okay, it shows, yes, you could say it's over time, it's showing a trend, we can see the trend a bit better. Who likes the stacked bar? Okay, and why do you prefer it to the clustered bar? Will somebody tell me? Okay, so what you're saying is that sorry, I've got the cluster bar there, let me just go back to this one. You're saying, if you look at the top of the red, that's the total for the UK workers. So you can see that. Anybody else who like this? So is this good at showing the other world? Why not?
Well, because you don't know exactly where it is from, like, is it 1 million to 2 million?
Yeah, because it's not on a common baseline. So in that case, you would like the cluster chart.
No, no, no.
Sorry, I've got the stat one. Okay, so you don't like that one. So at least the clustered chart has that benefit that we can see everything is on a common baseline, even though we can't see the total UK workers for the year. Okay. So a quick vote on that. Just very quickly, you've got choice of who likes the line chart, who likes the stack bar, and who likes the clustered. So I think the stack bar wins there. Right, exactly the same visuals, almost the same data. What we're doing now is I'm showing exactly the same things, but instead of showing it by the 3 countries of birth, I'm showing it by the 12 regions. So what we've got is each line represents a region. Now, you all voted a moment ago. Has anybody changed their view? Okay, why have you changed your view? It's the same visuals. Why have you changed your view?
So
Okay.
The point that you made about the baseline, maybe changed it for us.
Yep.
This time around, actually, the line chart, there's so much going on, simplifying it through the line chart.
Yeah.
I agree.
Good. Anybody else have a view on this? Oh, you're stealing my thunder, Rishi. Absolutely. No, I've got nowhere to go now. Okay. Yes. So it's interesting that if we have a different, these are basically categories, and if we have a different number of categories, we might change our choice of visualization. Okay. Right. Now, so far, I've presented everything to you in a very even-handed manner. I haven't led the audience in any way. I haven't made a point, apart from a point about visualizations. But now I'm starting to. This data originally we used, I gave a customized course to the City of London. There's 33 boroughs in London, and one is kind of quite unique because it covers a square mile. And most kind of local councils are worried about adult social care and children's social care. They're worried about trade and investment. And they want to bring in investors and people to come into London and come and work in London, set up companies in London. And they wanted to show how well London is doing. This is exactly the same data as we've seen before. It's exactly that regional data. So if we have a look at this one, it's this data, except what I've done, instead of doing absolute growth, what I've said is that everything starts off with 2004 equals 100. So we're saying for every 100 jobs in 2004, by the time we get to 2017, that has become 135 jobs in London, whereas in Wales, it's grown to 108 jobs. So relative growth. So that's the first thing that I've done. And then what I've done is I've said that I've coloured London in red and everything else in a boring light grey. They're all surrounds. You don't need to bother about the other regions. What's interesting, and then I've had this title here, London Stands Apart. Who thinks I've gone too far? I've been economical with the truth. You're all happy with this? You think this is good to make a point? So, anybody want to comment on it?
I'm sure that non-Londoners would prefer to see other colours being rather than grey for the
Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is all the other regions don't matter. I'm trying to draw importance to London.
So it depends on the audience.
Yes.
And the point you're trying to make.
And why?
So I'm sitting in London you're a bunch of outside investors, you've got oodles of money, all this foreign direct investment, I want you to come and have your business in London. Does this convince you? Good.
But I would also see it as competition as well, because there's a lot of good things happening in London. Maybe there's opportunity in other regions.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Maybe the other regions want your foreign direct investment a bit more. Maybe my argument has backfired on me. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, Rishi. What I'm trying to say is now we're communicating at the end. Right. So none of you thought that was controversial. This is definitely going to be controversial. You know, they call the Conservative leadership election the most dishonest election ever for a party leader and for PM. And here we have two views that may and may not be expressed. Jeremy is looking at the chart on the left, and he's saying we should be relaxed about immigration from the EU because A, it's only a very small amount compared to the number of jobs in the UK, and besides, you know, immigration from the rest of the world is even bigger than that. Whereas Boris might say, actually, if you look at the number of jobs in a relative way, you can see that EU people are taking most of the new jobs. And therefore, you know, maybe there aren't enough jobs for UK workers. Which one of these is lying and which one is true? They can't be both true. So maybe we're talking about now But the interesting thing, this is exactly the same data. It's almost exactly the same scales. One is absolute numbers, one is relative growth.
Is that not their bias?
Oh, absolutely. So have I, by putting that title on there, changed your opinion of the chart? And should we... Sorry? Okay. Yeah. Right. Should I have written the title for the first one, absolute number of workers, and the second one, relative number of workers? Should I be totally even-handed and said, not put a spin on it? Who agrees with that?
Yeah, because also there, it shows here the number of workers in
Yeah.
2004.
Sorry?
2004, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it needs to be as a title.
Yeah. So, and do journalists do that? No. So, and how many newspapers would you sell if you know? So there's a question of how much do we lead with our titles, our annotation? Do we tell a story? And we'll come back. Rishi will have a few words to say on that, I'm sure. Okay. I'm going to show you a different data set now. And let me start off with the data. This is the most boring data set in the world. And I defy you. It has got 2 columns of information. It has got a day for every day from the end of July 2010 to halfway through 2018. And a column which is the number of bikes high. These are the Boris bikes, Santander, Sadiq cycles, call you what you will. And these are the number of bike hires every day from when this scheme started. This is the public bike scheme in London, all the way through to a few months ago. A bit of a boring data set. But what I've done is that I've visualized it in 3 different ways. First of all, those of you, I heard some people really like the table, so I put a table on here. I hope you're going to vote for that. And then what I've done is I've given you the big picture. I've come over here and I've grouped it by year, and I've given you a bar chart by year. You can see the big picture. And really, if you do want to see the detail, what I've done is I've just put a line chart, and every day is there. Again, on the x-axis of this chart is from July 2010 all the way to April 2018. We have got about 2,500 points on there, and every day is represented. Right, who likes the table best? Well, a lot of you liked the table before. What has changed your mind? Who was that? Who likes the table best? Did you say something? Okay. What's changed then? You liked the table before, you don't like it now?
It's not summarised.
Well, the last one wasn't summarised. I gave you the 12 regions. Yeah. Yeah. And it's quite hard to read through 2,500. You can manage about 10 rows, but 2,500 rows, it's getting a bit difficult. Who likes this lovely big picture bar chart? Okay. And why do you like this? Sorry? Okay, it gives a good overview, and we can see that 2013 was a bad year for some reason. Why is this particular chart dodgy? There's something, what have I done wrong with my analysis here?
Oh, yeah.
2010 starts July 2018.
Yeah, so I really should take those years out because I only have half years. Yeah, I should do that. Okay. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that one. I meant to do this one. And here we go. Who likes the line chart best? Okay. And why? Yep, so and what are those peaks and troughs? Seasonal trend. We can see a nice seasonal trend. Yep. Anything else that we can see in this one that we couldn't see in the other one? Massive? Okay. Data quality issues or what? So we've got these 2 massive spikes. Maybe, what's our theory about that?
3 bike days?
Sorry?
3 bike days?
3 bike days? That would be nice. The data's wrong. Clearly, the data's wrong because you can't have suddenly twice the number of people getting on the bike on a day, can you? Yeah. So, does anybody want to disagree with our conjecture there? A tube strike, absolutely. These are the 2 tube strikes in the last 10 years. And this is a chart that shows the improvements of industrial relations on the tube. If you were, unfortunately, Boris Bikes didn't start in 2010, so I haven't got data of the last 20 years, but in the 2000s, this is a full tube strike. The whole tube strike is down, so everybody gets on the bike. But in the 2000s, there was a tube strike every year. So we can see something in the granular detail that we average away when we look at the big picture on that. Now we're going to get a tiny bit more complicated, and we're going to have a look at, we've been just looking at kind of one variable at a time, either country of birth or region, but here we're looking at 2 variables, okay? And what we're looking at is, again, we're looking at 2017 only. We're looking at that point in time, but we're looking at the relationship of where people were born and where they live and where they work. So we've got this lovely here Sankey chart, and the Sankey chart is supposed to show kind of a flow. And consider this flow, we get born and then we go and work. So this shows the flow of people who were born in the UK or who were born in the other EU to the places where they work. We have got the classic, and if you use Excel, this might be your first port of call. It is a matrix or a pivot chart, and we've got the regions on the rows, the countries of birth on the columns, and the numbers there, and I've put some sort of background, highlighting background colour to emphasise. You can immediately see that London, UK, and you can immediately see that London has the biggest, but also maybe has the biggest people from outside the UK. We might want to look, and I hardly dare suggest it, but I'll do it for completion. We have got, again, what we've got is our tree map, and this time I've split it into details. Each region is split into 3 details. I know what you're going to say about that. Now this is, Rishi stole my thunder earlier on, this is a 100% bar chart. And so what we've done, the size of each bar represents a region. The size of the bar is exactly the same, even though some regions have 2 million and some regions have 5 million people in them. So what we're seeing is now the proportions. This is maybe more useful when we want to have a look at proportions of countries of birth. But this bar chart, stat bar chart, doesn't tell us which, as I say, which region is bigger than the other. So this is a variation that called a Marimekko chart or a Mekko chart. Again, it's got our regions on as our columns. And the only difference with this one is that the width of the region is proportional to the number of people in the region. So we can see that London is a much bigger region than, say, Northern Ireland. And maybe we should kind of weight it more. So again, five things. I've only got a few minutes left, so I'll just ask for people's opinions and comments on this. What do you particularly like or dislike? Sankey chart. And why do you like the Sankey chart? Yeah, it's got that. Sankey charts are lovely. It's supposed to be a flow, and we do flow. We're born and we flow into a. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Who else votes for the Sankey? I'm going to count 1. Put your hands up properly. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the Sankey. Right. Who wants to make the case for some other chart?
Mekko?
Mekko. And why do you like the Mekko?
It's got every point of measure you can possibly want. You've got the quantum of people, you've got the distribution of people, and you've got the size of the market as well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Who agrees that the Mekko is the best? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 and a half? 12. Okay, you can only vote once, by the way. I'm sure I saw the same hands go up. Okay, right. Does anybody dare make the case for the tree map? And neither would I. Okay, plain and simple, who would like to make the case for the matrix? Well, okay, all right. It's simple and it shows something. And last but not least, maybe the MECO is a bit too complicated. Does anybody want to make the case for the 100% bar chart? Okay, so that's good that we have consensus. It would be awful if everybody voted the same. The last thing I want to show you before we finish is a different data set. And because there's one visual that I haven't really shown yet, and that is,
Mark, can I just raise a question on that?
Yep,
I think I make a different set of choices if I'm allowed to interact with it
yes,
versus that tool that I've got.
yes,
I don't know, I think maybe we're working on the basis of this one. You have that level of interaction.
yes, yes, you're right. Absolutely, and what I haven't touched in at all that is interaction, and interaction is basically having your cake and eating it, because you can have some really simple charts that are very understandable, and yet you can interact with them and drill down to the detail. And that's maybe Rishi might be covering that. So yeah, that's a good answer, isn't it? So before we go to the conclusions, we've got just a couple of minutes left. I want to show you a chart which I was very surprised at. Okay, so let's go straight to this, and I'm going to show you this chart. And let me just make a bit more space for it, and then I'll explain it. What we are looking at is schools in Croydon. Anybody from Croydon, Borough of Croydon? Okay, good, because it's a bad picture. All right, I've filtered on secondary schools, and this is data from the Department for Education. If you go to schools performance tables, you can download it, and amazing data on every single school. And I've just gone to Croydon. You can download it by borough. I've just focused in on secondary schools and mixed secondary schools as well, that have both boys and girls. And what I've done is I've taken a couple of numbers. It's the percentage of children in Key Stage 4, 16-year-olds, that pass the EBAC, or meet the EBAC. I think the EBAC is 5 GCSEs, but must include a maths, a science, a social science. So what we see, and what I've done is I've plotted, they give both the data for boys and for girls. I plotted that on a scatter chart. We haven't seen a scatter chart before, and it's one of the kind of big beasts of visualizations. So I'll give you a few moments to look on that. I've put a couple of guidelines. We'll talk about those later, what difference they might make on it. But look at this data and tell me what you can infer. And think about it maybe from the view if you were a parent or a prospective parent of a 10-year-old living in Croydon. Sorry, say that?
You wouldn't want to send them to John Ruskin College for the girl.
Yeah, and it might be that my data is wrong there, because that is so bad. Yes. So there's something going on with. Would you want to send them to the Al Kerr School? Yeah. Sorry? Okay, right. Any other comments? Someone's already chosen a school for their child. Sorry? Yeah. Does it make a difference where you send your child to school in Croydon? Sorry? What do other people think? So you could send it.
Most of them are all below target, right? So they're not passing. Is that what the target means?
So what I've done is a couple of things. Imagine that we don't have the targets. Just imagine that. Forget those. Just exclude those dotted and dashed lines from. Just imagine we've got the raw data. I would argue that there is a big difference between, say, the Quest Academy and Harris City Academy, you know, some schools are doing a lot better for their pupils. There is, you know, a big discrepancy, inequalities of outcome in education. This is just a small secondary schools in one borough, and we can see, you know, sometimes you're 4 times as likely. What's interesting for me, there's something shouting at this, and I haven't made it obvious from the visualization because the particular implementation I can't, but have a look at this, and is there any other inequality that's going on here? And maybe if I just hover on, if I got a tooltip, yeah. If I hover on the tooltip and you read that tooltip, yep. So what we see is that girls are, in this particular school, Harris City Academy, 41% of girls got the grades, but only 31% of boys. And if we have a look, actually what I would have loved to have done in this chart is have a diagonal line going through where kind of x equals y, going through 10%, 20%. And what we would find, it would go, in fact it actually goes through this line here because I put a target at 60%. What you can see is that in every school, girls are outperforming boys, and significantly so. Now, I don't know if this is the case for the country, or it's just Croydon, or it's just secondary schools, or mixed secondary schools. But that's something that comes out, and what I've done here, a bit of interactivity as you asked. I might want to click on Harris Academy and find out where it is. Here we've got, this is a calculation of what I've called the girls' advantage factor. What percentage do the girls outperform the boys? And clearly there's some schools, Alcare and Woodgate, that they perform by an extraordinary amount. So, who likes the scatter chart? So I could say, I've got 2 ways of showing you. I've got the scatter chart, and I've got as well, I've done it as a bar chart with traditional colours. Who prefers the scatter chart to the bar chart? Okay, and again, do you want to give your reasons why? Right, yeah. It's a much more rich, we can get a lot more information out of it. I would agree with that. So, thank you for that. So to go back to some conclusions, the study that Cleveland and McGill did in the 1980s, they said, actually, there is a good order of ranking order of which visuals are much more clear than other. So they said when we look at position, such as position on a scatter, we're much better differentiating, you know, this one is to the left of this one is slightly above. Position we can see very clearly. This is why a scatter chart, when we can use it, is a very good chart. Obviously it requires having 2 numbers that we plot against each other. If you can't do that, the length, and we've seen that, this is why you all like the bar charts, especially, you can tell that, you know, with some bars, even if they're very close, you can tell the difference between the lengths. You can tell that one is bigger than the other. I haven't shown you any slope charts in my data here, but we saw a slope chart when we looked at the baby names from 2007 and 2017. That slope is, we can see if something's horizontal going down a bit. Angle, so pie charts aren't so bad. Perhaps we haven't looked at shapes of markers and maps, but we could have on our scatter chart, we could have had different denominations have different markers, squares or circles. But that's quite difficult. You've got to look at those for quite a while to understand what's going on. Finally, and not surprisingly, you didn't like our tree maps because area is really, really difficult to judge which areas are bigger. Colour, we can't look at a dark blue and say that number is twice as much as a light blue. But colours, it doesn't matter. They're not saying that these are worse. Colour's got its place, but don't expect people to make judgments about which is more, how much more or less using colours. And lastly, I put it in grey because kind of text does take a long time. You've got to read all the numbers. So now you know when you come to do your charts, if you want to get the information, give us boring bar charts or even better scatter charts. So thank you for your time. Hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing your wonderful visual presentations in a couple of hours. Okay, thanks.